Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Colonel Stan Scrabbit, and tonight we have a special guest with us. Actually, no, he's actually been on all the time. Lieutenant Colonel Darren Ninnis is here with us, and he's going to be leading tonight's session. Say hello, Darren.
Hey, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight?
Very good. So, Darren, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, tonight's presentation is on cohort recruiting, whether it's a great idea or the greatest idea.
Very cool. All right. Before we get started, let's talk about some little housekeeping rules. We are learning some things right now. So how we're doing this presentation, we had to make some last minute adjustments, and we are talking last minute. But we still want you to ask questions. We're going to kind of keep an eye on them to the best of our ability. We may address them at the end, but ask questions. So you have three ways to ask questions. One, on the page that you're viewing, you can just put them directly in the chat on the page. And once again, we may get to them at the end, or maybe Darren will see them on the way and address them. Two, on the video itself, up in the corner, you have a thing that's Q&A, and that allows you to ask questions. And once again, we'll be monitoring those. And the third way is we are also leveraging the magic of Twitter. And we are using the hashtag CAP recruiting, and we're keeping an eye on all those things. But you didn't come to hear about how to ask questions. So we're going to get to the presentation at hand. So give me a second to pull this all up, and we should be good to go.
Fantastic, Stan. Thanks very much. So tonight's presentation, like I said before, cohort recruiting, great idea or greatest idea. The purpose of this presentation is to give you an idea how you can utilize cohort or pipeline recruiting to improve your units. Now, cohort recruiting is the big megaphone in the room. A lot of people don't understand it, and so we're here to explain some of it tonight. You'll see in the Great Start Guide that it talks about pipeline recruiting, which is also cohort recruiting. And we'll talk about the differences between both pipeline recruiting and the old style trickle-in recruiting. So cohort recruiting, basically is channelizing your functions into a real small defined cohort. Let's face it, the United States military does this in this way. They bring new people into the military in the exact same way. They don't have guys joining basic training, 6 weeks into training. No, everybody joins at once, everybody goes through training at once. So like I said, in the Great Start materials, this is referred to as pipeline recruiting. So why should you use it? Units already have these limited resources, so you should use them wisely. They improve your economies of scale. They put your administrative requirements into a much smaller period, and they concentrate your training events and your introduction to Civil Air Patrol into a nice, manageable piece. It also builds some repeatability for you. The customization allows you to customize your training and maintain consistency locally. It maximizes your training value for both your trainers and your new members. And that's important because you really need to make sure that your new members are getting good training value out of what you're putting them through. Otherwise, why are you doing it? And from a unit standpoint, it really, really, really starts to reduce your administrative overhead in terms of you're not doing the same function every couple of weeks when you have a new member come in and you have to do a membership board, or you get membership forms, or you're going to issue them new uniforms and that kind of thing. Now, some disadvantages, of course, is that this doesn't satisfy the whole right now crowd. People want to join. I want to come in and I want to plunk down my money and I want to join right now. You can't even do that if you want to join the Air Force. You walk into a recruiter's office, hey, I want to be shipped to Lackland this afternoon. The guy's going to tell you, come back tomorrow or next week. It is, as a disadvantage, it is different from the norm. A lot of people don't understand cohort recruiting. They say immediately, This is different. This is not what we've ever done before. We don't understand. It's confusing. It's not our thing. So it does take a little bit of convincing to get that buy-in. And you do obviously have a potential to lose a prospective member due to them having to wait for the next time you're going to build a cohort. Now, we'll see in a few slides here that this is also maybe an advantage, but we'll talk about that. So some of the advantages is, of course, that this is very repeatable. After a couple of times, you can do cohort recruiting in your sleep. It helps you build your economies of scale as far as your training goes. You're training a group of people all at once rather than one or two people several times, one after the other. It makes your unit look like they're professional and they have their stuff together, and it improves your resource use as far as your trainers go. You know, it really reduces churn as far as training goes. Now, if you look at the timeline with Trickle-in recruiting at the top there, you know, how effective is your training if you've got people at varying levels? The numbers in those boxes there represent, say, somebody trickling in. You're going to have a guy trickle in the second week. Another guy comes in the last week of January. Two young ladies come in the first week of February. Another 2 cadets come in. You know, so over a period of 3 months, you have 10 cadets that show up, but you know, you've run 2 great starts, and not everybody was ever on the same level during that great start. So, you know, you have people who might come in and they're, oh, well, we taught how to stand at attention last week, but you didn't get that. So here, let me teach you. And the guy who was taught last week is going, geez, I learned this last week. Hello. So whether you run Great Start, which is about 5 weeks long, or you run your own unit basic cadet training program, which could be, say, 8 or 10 weeks long, you know, you tend to have these same problems if you use trickle-in recruiting. You have to repeat the same basic subjects over and over. So anybody who's already in training is annoyed. They're playing catch up if you joined a little bit late, and your trainers are always having to peel off and repeat subjects during that training. However, if you use cohort recruiting, if you recruit everybody at the same time, you start your Great Start, you do it with, like right here in my example, you're still going to recruit 10 cadets, but you do it all at once in one big event. Then you run a Great Start for 10 people. And you tell people who are going to come later, you say, you know, hey, after this date, we'll have to schedule you for another cohort. Please come back. But it allows you to concentrate that training. You don't have to do things like verify documents, conduct membership boards, issue uniforms every 5 or 6 times during a 3-month period. You do it once.
Yeah, if I can jump in.
Sure.
This concept, I think is a cool concept in the fact it's really not also unique to our organization. You talked about the military, but I remember when I was young, Boy Scouts did this. They had a big push, and they brought in all scouts at one time, and it seemed like you couldn't join until another time. And then, you know, having worked with Extension, 4-H does the same thing, a big push to bring people on because they want to get their programming moving forward, and it does make it more difficult.
Right, exactly. And if you're working on, if you're working on a 12-week model, if you're working on a Great Start plan, you really want to have these chunks, have the same people in the training. We did get a question from Brian Rita here. How will cohort recruiting work with officer members? That's a great question. We used to do it with senior members and cadets, officers and cadets. And it will work. Same thing if you think about it. How often does somebody walk in the door and you start the level 1 training with them? Somebody else comes in 3-4 weeks later. Now, that guy's 3 or 4 weeks behind that first person. Yeah, I mean, it's a little different with officer training. It's not the same sort of thing. However, you can certainly make it the same sort of thing. We did it for a while like that, honestly. We got away from it. I'm not 100% sure why. It was while I was retired, so I'm not 100% sure what happened there. But quite frankly, I think it worked pretty well. Now we get less senior members in than we do cadets. we might get 2 or 3 senior members or 1 or 2 senior members at each recruiting event versus the 15 or 20 that we recruit as cadets. So some additional advantages, you're spreading your workload around, you're engaging the existing members that you have. These people are getting involved with you. You can say, okay, logistics officer, we really need to do this, and why don't you grab 3 or 4 officers and they can help you issue out uniforms. Or basic cadet training people, here's 4 cadet training NCOs, and you're going to push the flight through the next 5 weeks or 8 weeks. It's also predictable. They know for a period of time, this is what's going to happen. It's a very specific training. And it tends to self-filter. When we were talking about earlier about what happens if people don't come back. Well, what does happen if they don't come back? Were they really that interested if they don't come back? But people who wait to join, they tend to stick around and become long-term members. And this really results in a serious retention improvement. Nationally, we retain about 54.5% of our cadets, ballpark, and about 71.5% of our senior members year over year. Just looked at the numbers this morning for my unit, which does cohort recruiting. We currently retain 59.68 is our current number as of this morning, and senior member retention is almost 90%. So you can see right away that with this engagement and with the cohort, we really do keep members on board. We improve our retention. Also, first term cadet retention is about 23 to 25%. We keep 1 in every 4 of our new cadets. We tend to see a slightly higher number, although that number isn't called out in the individual unit statistics. So it's difficult for me to really give you the solid same number. But just anecdotally, I would tell you that we're retaining easily 35 or 45% versus 23 or 25%.
Now, are you also tracking other units that are doing cohort that have self-identified?
We haven't had that many units that have self-identified as having conducting cohort recruiting. We've had a couple of units that have said, yeah, we kind of do this. I do know that there's one unit, it's the Kevin Adams Squadron in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Good friend of mine is the squadron commander there. And they are also cohort recruiting. And honestly, I haven't looked at their numbers, but I suspect that their numbers are very similar.
Okay.
So a lot of times you'll hear excuses, why cohort recruiting won't work. I often say, you're not big enough to not do this. Too many squadrons are really small. They don't have a lot of resources. Isn't the better thing to do to concentrate what few resources you already have in a real organized way? Doing the same things over and over again without any benefit is a lot of work too. And, if you look at how other units are doing they doing better or worse than you are? If they're also trickling in recruiting, maybe they're doing something right. Maybe they're doing something different, and you should do that if they're doing it well. However, chances are they're not doing it very well.
One thing I want to add here is something that I'm picking up from the entrepreneur books that I'm reading, and it's this idea of scarcity, and it's really scary to kind of turn business away. But by doing that, you create this idea of scarcity that people think it's important. Google has historically leveraged this in a big way. When Gmail came out, you had to know somebody to get that magic ticket to enter into Google, and it was kind of a special thing. And as I said, it's really scary to tell people, kind of turn them away and say, we're not taking members right now until 2 months from now. And on this date, come and we will accept you into our program. It's scary,
It's
But
very
this
scary.
idea of scarcity is a real powerful tool.
It's very scary, and I'll be honest with you. That's probably the biggest thing that people say immediately when they hear about this is they say, I don't know. What do you mean you're going to turn somebody? I can't even fathom that you would turn people away. And no, we don't turn them away. We put them in our recruiting pool. We get their information. We build our recruiting pool, and then we bring them into the unit in an organized fashion. But honestly, our experience, and my unit's been doing this since 2000, so 16 years. Um, the thing that we've noticed, I shouldn't say, sorry, 2001, 15 years. The thing we have noticed though is that usually when we have somebody who say they come in the 1st of January or around there and they say, hey, I want to join Civil Air Patrol, we say, oh, sorry, we're not taking new members right now, but in the middle of March, we're going to be having an open house and a recruiting night. Let's get your information, we'll have you come back. The ones that come back are the ones that stick. It's amazing how well they stick. So, if they don't come back, though, really, how interested were they? I mean, seriously, if it's easy come, if you make Civil Air Patrol easy come, it's also easy go. If a person has no investment in the whole process, it was just, it was something I did on a whim. Maybe that's not the person we want. And a lot of units will say this, well, we can't do this right now. We're in a rebuilding phase. That is the perfect time to do it. Now, you got to keep in mind, this does require a plan. It's all about planning. Planning is key, and if you're not doing a good job of planning, start. Please do yourself a favor. Start planning. Plan ahead. Plan down the road. Plan for a quarter. Plan for 2 quarters. You have to have the cohort from start to finish, and you also have to have a plan so that when the young men and women come out of cadet basic training or out of your level 1 training, they've got a vibrant and active squadron to graduate into. I had a person ask me all about cohort recruiting. Okay, we're going to do it that way. I've convinced my squadron commander we're going to do it like this. And I got an email just a couple of days ago that said, oh, they're going to graduate in a couple of weeks. Now what? And I had to shake my head for a second and say, I have a headache now. Because if your unit didn't really have much to begin with, let's start on that first. So a unit, of course, needs a schedule, continuous advancement of the membership. People want to be involved with something that looks like it's organized and together. And if you're planning this and you're organizing it, then you look like you're something that people want to be a part of. Now, first step is building your cohort plan. You need to have a plan of when you're going to conduct your recruiting. So you can say, okay, if we're going to, let me use a great example. My unit open house was on the 3rd of March this month. We said basic cadet training starts week 0 on the 10th of March, which is the very next week. And we will complete all the in-processing steps for membership joins and stuff like that by the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. That was kind of bad planning, but it was a Thursday. So, you need to know those dates, though, so you can at least say when somebody walks in the door and they say, oh, hey, I want to join Civil Air Patrol, and it's the 1st of April, you can say, oh, we're not taking new members now, but we will be conducting a new Great Start program in June. Can I get your name and your information? I'd like you to come back. So all planning then backs up from that unit recruiting event. We've talked about this, how to hold an open house. That was our first training night, was in January, was how to conduct a unit recruiting event like this. So, I'll kind of rehash a couple of those things. At least 4 weeks out, you want to have your flyers and your advertising moving, okay? And you want to be making sure that everybody in your unit knows the timeline. The last thing you need is somebody in a unit who somebody says, well, okay, I want to join, but when is basic training, or how soon do I have to have the money, or da 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 da. And if they don't know these things, then it looks like you don't have your stuff together again. Now, you want to build your advertising. Advertising is key. You want to be able to get, if you're going to concentrate everybody into that one event, you need to work hard to get everybody possible hooked into that one event. Flyers work pretty well. They're what we call a 1-meter recruiting item. It's a person-to-person thing, something you put in somebody's hand. The newspaper, I'm not sure who reads that anymore, but certainly, put an ad or put a calendar item in the paper. Maybe somebody's grandmother goes, oh, Johnny would be interested in this. If you have what they call patch.com in your area, sign up for it and then set yourself up so you can put items in. I'm not 100% sure how effective we were this time, but we put 2 things in the weeks leading up to our open house in patch.com, and it seemed to be pretty helpful. Facebook. If you have a squadron Facebook page, and most squadrons do these days, try boosting either the putting an event for your recruiting night and then boosting it using a paid advertising, or create a thing that says, hi, we're going to be having an open house on this night, whatever, and boost that. Do it in a targeted way. Start small, target your age group. Say you're only going to concentrate on cadets, make it 13 to 18. You can do it by geographical area within 10 miles, 15 miles of a particular zip code. You can then target interests. People who are interested in aviation, aerospace, rocketry, emergency services, military. There's all kinds of things you can kind of key on there. This is key because $25 in Facebook advertising could get you literally a couple hundred good impressions that would then bring people into your unit. They'll look at your Facebook page, they'll say, what is the Civil Air Patrol? What's going on? I've never heard of this before. And they'll start looking closer. And if you have a website, obviously make sure your website's up to date. People look at websites, and if a website looks like it hasn't been touched in a year and a half, obviously that's not something they want to be involved with.
Hey, I would like to add 3 more to this list.
Sure.
First of all, Craigslist.
Oh, that's a new thing. Somebody mentioned that, and that's great.
Craigslist is a free place that you can go ahead and put these type of community events on there. Great place to put it. The next is brochures, good old-fashioned brochures. We used to put them in beauty salons. Why? Because that's where moms were. Right? So we put them in there. And then social media, all kinds of social media, everything from Instagram to Snapchat to Twitter. You may say, well, I don't want to use those things. I don't use those things. Get past that.
Yeah. Start using it.
These are tools. They are tools to get the word out.
Yep, absolutely. That's fantastic, Stan. Good. I never thought about the Craigslist thing, but you're absolutely right. So you want to have multiple avenues for people to contact you. A contact form on your website, email links. Maybe you're going to take Facebook messages. We get a lot of Facebook messages on our squadron Facebook page from people going, how do I join? How do I get in touch with you? Where do I go? And a phone number. A lot of people just want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. I got a phone call just tonight from a gentleman interested in membership. And make sure it's something that somebody's going to answer, though, because I can't tell you the number of times that we hear about this. Use multiple people, not just one person, to answer these contact avenues. For an example, on our squadron Facebook page, there's 3 administrators. If one of us doesn't jump on somebody messaging that page within minutes, it's an unusual day. I mean, like, it must be a crazy day at work. Certainly you want to make sure that you use the multiple people to make sure there's not a single point of failure there. Follow up with everybody who calls. Please do so. And even if it's just a canned text email where you cut and paste, hey, thanks for your interest in Civil Air Patrol. Our next unit open house will be on the 3rd of March, and you can come down to the National Guard Armory here in Concord. Whatever it says. Cut and paste. If you make it simple, you'll be far more likely to get it out to somebody quickly. And do it quickly, within just a couple days at the most of any initial contact. Somebody emails the squadron, get right with them.
Yeah, Brian Reddy left us a question, well, really a comment. He suggests also getting your open house event on the Wing calendar and the Wing website, which great idea. Great idea to do that.
Fantastic idea, absolutely.
A couple things that I want to add to this is you talked about having a telephone number. One of the things that a unit could do is use Google Voice to set up a number that basically people can call to, and it collects, basically you can have it go directly to voicemail that somebody checks, that would send an email to whoever's, the point of contact for that, that you could have people check in on that.
The only thing I will say is here in New Hampshire, where I'm at, in the 603 area code, there is no Google Voice.
Well, that hurts.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, that's the only thing that's holding us back from doing exactly that.
The other one is Google Forms.
Yes.
Google Forms, you can set up a form, a contact form that you can just link to on your website. They go in, they give their name, all the information that you need to collect. And people who are watching that can be notified automatically on how, that somebody just signed up, so you can go and respond to them. But it creates a central place that, we use it. I use it at work. When somebody has reviewed something, we color code it to make sure that we know that it's being taken care of. You can add somebody's name, whatever.
That's actually the next slide, Sam.
Sorry. And then finally, the one thing I want to, the canned email messages, the idea of scripting, the idea of having those templates that you plug and play and everybody's got privy to. And I leverage Google Docs a lot, and we have a series of those in Google Docs that we can use. So,
and if you have IT guys in your squadron who are familiar with this, then engage your IT guys, because again, this is one of those things that helps engage your membership in continuing the mission.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, that's all right. I understand. So you're always filling that tank. You're always filling your prospects pool here. Whether you use a spreadsheet, a text file, a Google sheet, a database of some sort, it's your pool. You decide what's going to work for your unit. Name, address, phone number, email, the status of them, whether they're a prospect, they've joined, they're not interested anymore, when they've contacted you. This is something you can keep track of. And automate it if you can. Use MailChimp, use Google Forms, that sort of things. But again, have more than one member doing this. I can't tell you how many times we hear, oh yeah, Joe was the only person who had access to that, and he flaked out and he left, and well, and get back to those inquiries immediately. So you're filling a tank from your prospect. You're filling your prospects pool from a variety of places. The website might have something. You might get emails in. People come in and visit. I have a notebook that I specifically just scribble information into. When somebody comes in, I get their name, their phone number, their email address, the name of their son or daughter, that kind of thing. So then I can go back in later and populate my Google spreadsheet with that information for later follow-up, and that will come up on that, and phone calls too. So contacts and follow-ups are key. The number one complaint we get from prospective members nationally is, I can't get in touch with anybody locally. People call, people email, people, they see the information on the unit locator, but nobody ever gets back to them. That's a problem. It's a serious problem. So, be sure you're following up with people when they contact your unit. They need that personal touch to, oh, hey, I got a live body on the phone. Awesome. Be able to tell them when to come to the unit. What we do, because we cohort recruit, is we tell people, hey, you want to come down the unit, see what we have going on? That's absolutely great. Come on down. We'll give you the nickel tour. We never turn somebody away when they're interested in looking. We'll look around. We'll tell you all about it. And stay up with the prospects in your pool. Be ready to send those follow-ups and notifications when you're ready to have your next recruiting event.
Hey, so a note from our main website here, Art Dammers,
Yeah.
one of our own. He belongs to a squadron that has a formal cohort phase 1 flight. Everything you mentioned is exactly what happened. We always
Nice.
had 45 to 50 cadets.
Nice.
Very cool. Glad to
Outstanding,
hear that.
Art. Well, I'll talk. I'd like to talk to Art about that later, but outstanding. So when you're preparing for your event, you've got your prospects pool. You know, you're going to communicate with those people, and you're gonna reach out to your prospects pool, the people that you've been filling the pool with, to say, hey, here comes the event. You know, you came down, you were interested, come on down. You've got your unit website, Facebook, other kinds of social media that are going to tout your event. You got maybe some TV advertising. You go to the local TV station and say, hey, do you have a calendar or something like that? Newspapers, again, like I mentioned, flyers, all these things are you at this moment in time, you're going to use all of these things to kick off this event. Um, you know, it's important that you build all of these things to focus on this one event. That's the whole thing with cohort is if somebody comes in 3 weeks after the cohort starts, it's a non-starter. You need to work on getting them to come in then. Okay, so holding your recruiting event. So the purpose of this, and we've talked about this. This was our January recruiting presentation. But you know, get people inside that 1 meter recruiting zone. You have an open house recruiting night, whatever you want to call it. Just do it. Keep it simple. Have it. You know, talk about what Civil Air Patrol is. Talk about how you join and explain. You need to join. We used a system called a call to join. It was something I stole from the Boy Scouts. Have your cadet commander stand up and talk about why they're in Civil Air Patrol. Very powerful. Make sure people have takeaways, you know, a member packet, that sort of thing, and always have food. Food. Love food. So, and again, let your members recruit cadets, adults recruit adults. Now, this photograph that you're going to see here is from the 3rd of March. It's not the best photograph in the world. It's from my cell phone. I counted 109 non-Civil Air Patrol people in the room by the time we were done that night. We had 109 cadet-aged or parent-aged people. You know, I didn't count like, you know, babies and little 5-year-olds running around and that sort of thing. But we built our pipeline and we do a good job of building the pool. We had 109 people show up for our presentation and our awards. Now you've got this motley collection of shining faces right here. This happens to be the Kevin Adams Squadron in Ann Arbor, Michigan. My good friend Mark Davalos is in the background there, and you know, this is a squadron that started just a few years ago, and now they're a powerhouse in Michigan Wing, partly because they recruit like this. So now that you've got them, you've used your prospects pool, you've held your event, it's time to conduct your cohort. You know, so go the next week after your event. Go kick it off. Train these young men and women. Okay, so you can see you've got a bunch of young men and women that start and they're all in civilian clothes and they all show up all fresh-faced and excited and they're ready to rock and roll. Start training them. Train. And so have a definitive start and end of training, whether you use Great Start or your own basic cadet training. Have a plan to put them into the mix of training right away. Just don't wait. You know, a lot of people, oh, okay, you know, well, we might have training next week, or, well, if you show up next week, we'll have some things for you to do. No, tell them, look, show up next week. We're going to put you right to work. Boom, do it. Don't fool around. Be positive. Tell them what's going to happen, and then put them together and train them together. Stan, we have a question. What recruiting information is available in languages other than English? Most cadets will speak English, but some of the parents may not. We've had this problem come up, or this question come up nationally, and in general, we kind of leave it to the units to know their environment or their makeup of the demographics in their area. So if they know that they need Spanish language materials or something along those lines, certainly, get those materials and produce some stuff that's in Spanish, or say they're in the northern tier state and they're right up on the Canadian border and it's in French, for example. I'm guessing it would be probably Spanish, but that's an important thing. But it's generally the best thing is that the units that are in that area will know what their demographic and what their need is.
But I'm pretty confident if someone sent you material, took some of the material we had and translated it into a language, we could probably find a place on the web.
Oh yeah.
To put that out so other people could use it, right?
Absolutely. I would put something that if there was a locally produced item that was in the I could put that in the materials repository. The thing is our recruiting budget for printing these kinds of things is relatively limited. So to have a completely different language item is, unfortunately, it's just not really in the budget. So I hate to
but we have a place that you can download and do your own.
Yep. Absolutely. We can put the locally produced stuff. The unit's got a great brochure that's in Spanish. Hey, awesome. I will put that there and make it available so folks can download it and use it. That's great.
Great question. Great question.
So anyway, so when you're going to integrate the cohort to the unit, Stan, you can go to the next slide.
I'm sitting there.
That's good. So you're going to integrate the cohort into your unit, complete your training on time. This is a big thing. A lot of units, if they use Great Start or they use their own BCT program, don't have a 6-week program that suddenly becomes 8 weeks on the 5th week. It just doesn't work. Moms and dads get whacked out of shape. Say, hey, look, we're going to start training on this date and we're going to have graduation on this date. Know that, and then work to that plan. Have moms and dads come down, make it a big deal, make it a whole graduation ceremony into this thing. We do have a question here. Where would you put the attend at least 2 meetings to see if you like CAP before you join? Well, if the first meeting is your open house night, that's meeting number 1. In using my unit as an example, the 3rd of March was our open house night. There's meeting number 1. Week 0 was meeting number 2. Hey, we're going to throw you into training. You're going to see if you like it or not, right? And week 3 was okay, everybody sign on the line that is dotted, and have your membership application submitted. We're going to size you for uniforms, verify your documents, that kind of thing. So we actually have 3 meeting nights. First meeting night is the open house. Second meeting night is week 0 of the training, and then the 3rd meeting night is in processing night. I actually prefer to go a week longer in that, but some units don't. So promote cadets that have completed their curry. Perhaps not all will, but most cadets get to their, finish their curry at the very end of basic training. That's what we shoot for, is 100% curry completion, so we can get them into blues. And then assign cadets to your flights. Hand them over to your actual cadet NCOs that are in your flights to do the follow-on training. And now they're going to move on and they're going to do all the things the squadron's doing as a whole.
I like this, and maybe I'm not seeing it the right way, but the graduation from Great Start or your basic cadet training is one thing, and making a big deal that they completed this really important training.
Mm-hmm.
Then a promotion ceremony for those that, have, stepped up to the curry, is a distinct thing.
Yes.
Because you don't really want, you want to make, you definitely, all the cadets, especially when they're new and impressionable,
mm-hmm.
Hey, this graduation thing was a really cool thing, right? You don't want them to be kind of downhearted that,
right,
the graduation curry, that's the same thing, and they did not succeed.
What we always say is everybody graduates from BCT. There's no more BCT after tonight. You're in a flight, whether you're airman basic, or airman, but the goal is to get everybody to their curry, and we have about a 95% completion rate on that. We're pretty good.
Very cool.
So you've had your pool, you've had your event, you've run your BCT, you get to the end, you have this great graduation, and you put them in the flights of your awesome squadron. Everybody laughs when they see this graphic, A flight, B flight, C flight. They're like, we're lucky to have one flight. We have 3 flights, full flights, not 4 or 5 cadets in a flight. No, we have 3 full 12, 14, 16 cadet flights. So here you are, a group of young men and women completing their basic cadet training and pledging that they will serve faithfully in the Civil Air Patrol cadet program. This is part of the formalized introduction to the program. Make it serious, make it important, make it something that they want to do and that they know that it has gravity. So what about after? I've had literally, like I said before, I had people email me and say, okay, we're a couple weeks from the end of training. Now what do we do? You really should have more than just BCT or Great Start going on. You were running a squadron before this, I would hope. Maybe your problem at your unit isn't with recruiting. It's that you don't have a real spectacular program. Let's fix that too. Sometimes you need to it's a chicken or the egg thing. So you know what? Just fix them as it's like whack-a-mole. Fix it as it comes up. You can't wait for one condition to be perfect to do another thing. So sometimes just do what you can. But move on with your monthly training, your quarterly plan, activities, events. Integrate these new young men and women into your unit. You do have this kind of thing, I would hope, right? So there's some. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stan.
No, I was just chuckling under my breath. A documented plan, not something that's, well, what are we doing next week kind of plan. It's, I have a plan. I can tell you on this date, 2 months out, what we are doing.
Yes.
And everybody knows.
Yes, exactly. So there's some extra effects to this cohort too. These are some things that the cohort process will actually have on your unit and improve things. So, like I said before, it engages your existing membership in running the open house. This is an actual thing you have to run. You run an ops plan to do it. You delegate assignments to people. People actually have to do stuff. So, you involve your membership. It's not one person running this. I had a unit commander when presented with all the steps to lead up to a cohort or a Great Start or even just a regular recruiting night. He said, well, I'm really busy. That's a lot of stuff. And I said, well, you do have other people in your squadron. I'm sure they can do things. So engage your membership. That's going to bring them along. They're going to feel like they're a part of the program, and they're part of growing and engaging the unit. And on in-processing night, you've got all kinds of steps. We set up different stations. We have 2 membership boards running so that we have enough people to do membership boards for every member without it being a backup. Our logistics people are sizing cadets up so that they're ready to put their sizes in for their Curry voucher. Maybe we can issue them BDU uniforms. We used to do data entry, but now with the online app for cadets, we don't do data entry for them anymore. And then the commander has to verify documents, that kind of thing. The commander's pretty busy. Maybe we got a cadet who knows what he's doing, taking pictures so that we can upload their picture when we need to, right to e-services. So it really brings everybody along.
Yeah, the in-processing line. Very cool.
Yeah, and the other thing it does is it enhances your training events. It builds a systemic, repeatable training situation in your unit. And once you start doing that with Great Start, and once you start doing that with either Great Start or BCT, you're going to do it for a lot of things, not just this. So then you start doing planned training as opposed to hip pocket training. A lot of people like to talk about hip pocket training, but you know what? It's not always the best thing. You can bring in previously trained members to then serve as small, pre-coordinated, like you can bring in a couple of airmen and say, you guys just learned this last week. Please come in here and demonstrate this for these cadets. They get some supervised training time on small subjects. You can have somebody come in, I want you to teach saluting to these people. And it keeps everybody on the same page or on the same piece of paper. Now, we talked about that motley crew in the previous picture. Now, this is my squadron. Last December, we graduated 21 new cadets into the squadron in one cohort. And as a way of showing off, we had 109 people, I said, in our open house on the 3rd. We in processed 23 new cadets this last week. So this is your group. I mean, you know, you bring in a whole bunch of people at once, they're all going to learn from each other and they're all going to learn at the same time. It's really a team of tigers when you think about it. Oh yeah, Stan, you all right there?
Sorry,
no worries. So some other extra effects of this cohort is that the members you recruited and trained tend to rely on each other. I noticed this. I had a bunch of cadets. I would overhear them and they'd be saying, "Oh, you were in the spring 2013 class? Oh, I was in fall 2012. We were way better." You know, there'd be this little bit of rivalry going on there, and it was kind of, they would kid each other. Oh, you know, spring 2013. That was the knuckleheads. You know, it was funny watching this, but I noticed that they started to identify with their cohort as well as the larger unit, and that's important because that gives them an extra level of reliance, somebody they can rely on. They can fall back on their buddy who they were in basic cadet training with because they know that guy. They've known that guy since the first day they were in the organization. And later on, it does tend to get a little competitive. You know, you'll see people who will do things like, oh, well, you know, you'll see a guy, oh, I was from the basic training class before these guys, and look, I'm a flight sergeant. You know, all of a sudden people go, whoa, that guy from behind us is coming up on our backside. Let's go. So if you're a veteran, think back to basic training, the people you went through training with in basic training. That was your cohort.
3711 BMTS.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Basic Training Brigade, Fort Dix, New Jersey. Hoorah! Anyway, sorry, I had to do that. So common mistakes, though, that you'll have, a lot of people do is, you know, units don't advertise and they just expect people are going to show up. You know, oh, we didn't tell anybody we're having an open house. Well, how are people going to find out about this? Like telepathy? So, you know, if you don't advertise, you're never going to get anybody in the door. Flyers work and they're cheap. And, you know, you want to make sure that your people know what the plan is. I've been to units where literally 2 weeks out, the unit members didn't know they were having an event. It changed at the last second. If your membership doesn't know what's going on, how do prospective members know what's going on? Another common mistake, series of common mistakes are, you know, uninteresting in events. They're too long. There's a lot of sitting around. There's no interesting looking things to see. You know, you only want to talk to people for 20 minutes or so, like in a PowerPoint situation like that. They don't know anything about Civil Air Patrol. Give them a quick overview and then give them some food and let them talk to people. Oh, there we go, food, feed them. And then, you know, a lot of units don't have any plan again for what happens after they've trained these people. Well, they just kind of go into a flight. Well, what does the flight do? Well, you know, they kind of march around. Wearing circles in the concrete is not a cadet program. Another common mistake we see a lot is, you know, there's no follow-up. So you build a pool and then you don't use the pool. There's no follow-on training or progression after cadets leave basic cadet training. They're airmen and nobody talks to them about how they become an airman first class. A lot of times units are selling the wrong thing. You know, they're selling emergency services and their squadron or wing doesn't do emergency services. And another big mistake is they're not making their training repeatable.
Yeah, recent article I shared in one of the newsletters spoke about the idea of food and combining your event with another event, you know, a barbecue cook-off, a cake baking, a pie baking, you know, contest. See if you can find a partner organization, you know, that's bringing food and do that partnership and see where that takes you, or have your own additional contests, a chili cook-off and an open house,
or a can drive or something like that. Maybe it's around Christmas time, do a can drive or something like that. So maintaining your cohort is kind of important. You want to, now you've got this group of people that identify with each other, follow up with them at intervals after joining. It's kind of interesting that the cohort tends to notice when one of their own drops out of the organization, when somebody stops showing up. They notice before sometimes the flight sergeant or the flight commander notice that somebody's not showing up. Somebody goes, "Hey, what happened to Jones?" They just spent 10 weeks with Jones, 8 weeks with Jones. So they start making phone calls. It's kind of a self-sustaining thing. It's kind of self-encouraging. Like I said, they help each other along. When you can see that you've got a problem, if you've got 10 tech sergeants, but only one senior airman from that last basic training flight, by the time they progress along, maybe that senior airman needs a little bit of extra help. And you go, yeah, there's 10 cadets that graduated from that basic training flight, and 8 months, 10 months later, they're tech sergeants, or a year later, they're tech sergeants. But this one guy, he's a senior airman. Yeah, I think there's a problem there. So it helps. You'll notice these things. Also, follow up with members not showing up. This applies not only to the cohort. If you're doing trickle-in recruiting, you should follow up with these people, get them before they lose interest, and then like cadets are doing things like sports, school plays. They're easily out of the loop. So make sure you're doing things to re-engage these members and communicate to the membership, fairly regularly. Now, I'll tell you this: the proof's in the pudding. My unit, I fall back on this because it is what I know, and it's experience that I've had, and it's been incredibly successful. In November 1999, I took over the unit. It had 10 seniors and 27 cadets, with less than 25% of each showing up. I literally had 3 seniors and about 12 cadets, 8 cadets, 10 cadets. It was kind of awful. In December of 2000, we said no more until January, no mas. We just can't. We were trickling people in. We had a whole bunch of people at different levels. It was a training nightmare. Nobody was keeping up. Nobody was minding the store. I said, look, we're doing an open house next month. If somebody walks in the door tonight, let's just tell them to come back at the end of January. Well, I had a deputy commander for cadets that didn't like that very much, but he said, well, all right, we'll try that. I think you're crazy, but we'll try it. And it worked. So we started cohort recruiting in January of 2001. By March of 2002, we had 80 cadets and 35 seniors in the squadron. And since 99, this unit's recruited about 450 cadets and at least 100 senior members in that time. Maybe not 100. I have to go back and look at the numbers, but we consistently keep 65, 75 cadets. We're at 85 right now, although a few from last year will fall out of the books, and 25 to 30 seniors. We're right now sitting at 31. Each cohort generally consists of 12 to 18 cadets. These last 2 that we've run, one was 21 cadets, and this one is now 23. Pretty big, but we got the last 2 open house nights that we've run, 21 cadets, 23 cadets. We've gotten 3 seniors last time, and I think we're going to get 3 seniors this time. We don't see a lot of churn. We even out. The squadron doesn't have those crazy ups and downs in the membership graph. It's a pretty even, consistent thing. And we've never since 1999 has this unit ever uttered the phrase, we're in a rebuilding phase. And again, I'll point back to our cohort recruiting effect on retention. We're retaining better than the national average for cadets, and we're absolutely retaining seniors better than the national average because we've got things for them to do and we're keeping them motivated.
Yeah, and we definitely want all units in the nation to be above the national average.
Absolutely. So again, this is the 21 that graduated last time around. They were a motivated bunch. I think I have one young man move out of town. That's the one I've lost so far from last year. We're really keeping this crew engaged, and it's really helped out. And if you can embrace cohort recruiting and you can understand that, you have to say, yeah, you can't join right now. You're going to have to come back in June or whenever the next event is. Once you get over that hump, there's generally not that many people, because the whole idea is to bring them in the front end, get as many to come in to your big recruiting event. You won't have that many, but build that pipeline and you'll be able to, it self-sustains. So look at that, 54 minutes, Stan. Anybody, any questions from the field? I haven't seen anything on Twitter, Fall. And we have had a few questions in the Q&A, I saw. I was going to look in the group chat. I don't see anything in the group chat. So, the important thing to remember, though, is that this is just one method to do it. People have told me there's no way I can sell my commander on that. That's fine. Trickle-in recruit. If it works for you, keep doing it. If you're having trouble with things, maybe it's time to try something different. It doesn't hurt to try something different. So, well, Stan, it looks like we had a pretty successful training event tonight.
Absolutely. Very cool. Let me unshare myself there. Yeah, well, everybody that came out, thank you very much for coming out. So here's what we got going on in the near future. So in the month of April, we have the Northeast Region Conference. So we are going to be co-presenting with Massachusetts Wing at the conference. It looks like it's kind of a roundtable panel discussion. We'll figure out something. We may do a World Cafe. I don't know. We'll figure out something there, but it'll be a good time. So because we're doing that, we may or may not be sharing that. If we share it, it may be last minute. We'll just try to capture what's going on there. But during that event, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to whip out Periscope, and we are going to be talking to cadets. We're going to be talking to senior members, why they like this program, and broadcasting it. So from the looking at, I'll be getting there 6th, 7th, 8th. So 8th, 9th, 10th. Keep an eye on Twitter, and I will be doing Periscope from my Northeast Region Recruiting Twitter account. And we're going to be talking, definitely talking to cadets and what keeps them excited. In May, I guess I'm going solo on this, so I'm going to be juggling 1,000 hats. But I will be talking about various social media and how to leverage these tools to support your program. So as Darren noted, using social media should be part of your communication plan. So let's figure out the tools, ways that you can do it. So we'll just talk about a lot of different tools, a lot of tools that you may not be aware of. You may think that it takes a lot of time, but you can automate a lot of these processes, and we'll kind of do a deep dive on that a little bit. So that's what we got coming up in the next couple months. Darren, back to you.
That's about it. I really appreciate everybody who came by tonight and participated in the training and asked questions. I hope a lot of people watched. I didn't catch our statistics so far, but I'll look forward to seeing you, Stan, at the Northeast Region Conference. And thank you very much for taking the reins for May, because I know I'm going to be out of the loop.
Yeah, well, you have a good time. Oh,
yeah.
Southwest Region has a conference with the Texas Wing in April, also 13 to 17. Very cool. That comes from Brian Reddy.
All right, outstanding.
Hey, and I just want to put a plug. We just started this in January. We think one of the things that's lacking out there is being able to get good training out there, and so far, the January one, we talked about, doing an open house. that seem to be very well received, and we really appreciate that. I just simply stole from what Colonel Ninnis had provided. Tonight, Colonel Ninnis, he just went out and threw some more cool stuff out there talking about cohorts. I think it's absolutely great stuff. We talked about reasons why members are leaving the program and what we can do to keep them in the program. So those presentations are still out there. I will pull them together and put them on Northeast Region website so you can find them. They're not pooled together and collected right now, but we will do that so you guys can go look at them. But what I was going to point out is, you guys, I mean, some folks out there are doing some really cool stuff. We would love to hear if you've got a successful program and you want to come on and talk about it. Have we got a forum for you? We can plug you right in and share all this good stuff, and we would be happy to do that. So,
and there's one thing you can bet on is that we're not hard to locate online.
Absolutely. But seriously, if you have something that you want to share, just ping us and we will work you into the mix. I said I had something in May. Doesn't have to be me. So we'll get to it eventually. The year and years are long, and we'll just keep plugging away until we're out of it. Maybe we'll start repeating, so with a different spin. Colonel Ninnis, anything else?
That's all I got, sir. We're at 10 o'clock, so we want to keep it to an hour.
Yeah, better than my last one. Okay, very good. Appreciate it, everybody, and thank you for joining us in the Google Plus chat. If you thought we did okay, send some love. Thank you. Bye for now.